short leash. Guys all ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're ready to do this thing, huh?
We're gonna, once you convene the meeting, we need to, first thing, we need to make sure the commission's okay with Commissioner Allen participating remotely under the new Brown Act rules.
So how do we handle it?
Go ahead and just start the meeting, and then you can
What?
kick it over. Just go ahead and start the meeting, and you can kick it to me if you want.
Okay, all right. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Carmel Planning Commission to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Karpetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke. Here. Chair LePage,
Here.
and Commissioner Delves is absent.
And Commissioner Allen is
Yeah,
going to be...
so Mr. Chair, what we need to do just procedurally under the new Brown Act rules is Commissioner Allen is homesick. And so under those rules, she is able to participate. That's a qualifying reason to participate from Zoom, but it just takes the majority vote of the commission to allow her to proceed. So it would just be a consensus vote. You would ask your fellow commissioners, is everyone okay proceeding with Commissioner Allen participating remotely? And if everybody says yes, then we'll carry on.
Okay, are the commissioners ready, okay with Commissioner Allen
Yes.
being remote? Yes. Okay, yes.
Okay, then we're off to your regular agenda. Thank you,
So
sir.
Commissioner Allen, let the record show that Commissioner Allen is here with us too. Okay, I hope you're feeling better. All right, I want to welcome everybody here today. The first item on our agenda, as usual, are the public appearances. So anyone from the audience or members of the community may address the Planning Commission at this time on any matters of municipal concern. Pardon?
Roll call.
We did roll
Did
call.
that. We're good.
Yeah, we did roll call. Yeah, we did that. Okay, but thanks for reminding me. So anyone from the public can address the Planning Commission on any matters of municipal concern which are not on our agenda today. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and address us at this time about any matter which is not on our agenda today? I don't see anybody coming forward. Is there anybody online raising their hands? I don't see anybody. Anybody? Do you see anybody there?
Nope.
Okay. All right, we will, are there any announcements from staff or any of the commissioners? Any announcements from the public? Okay, that takes us to our next item, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and do not usually require discussion, but any members of the public or the Planning Commission may ask for any item to be pulled for any further discussion. So we have 3 items on the consent agenda tonight. We have the monthly activity report of the Planning Commission, or the Planning Department. We have item number 2 is a design study, that's DS 2328, the Manelli project. This is consideration for a 120 square foot addition to the lower floor of a residence, demolition of the existing garage and construction of a new 200 square foot garage located at Santa Fe Street 3 South, northeast of Mountain View, and it's in the R1 district. And item number, this is an approval similar to what was granted by the Planning Commission in June of 2020 under Resolution 2020-01-PC. And this is a very similar application. Okay, the next item is on the consent agenda is number 3. This is a design study 23036. This is a Metcalf project. This is consideration of a final study and associated coastal development permit for the demolition of 868 square feet, single-family residence, and construction of a 1,592 square foot 2-story addition with a 200 square foot parking pad located on Torrey Street 4 southeast of 4th Avenue in the R1 district. So those are our 3 items on the consent agenda. Is there anybody from the public that want any of those items pulled for any questioning? Don't see anybody. No hands online. Any commissioners have any questions?
Chair LePage,
Oh, we
I
have-
would like to pull Metcalf if I could.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Allen.
So I'd like to pull Metcalf from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys, what you should do is you should take action on the remaining consent agenda.
That's what
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
do, yeah. Okay, so the Commissioner Allen has requested that item number 3, the MedCap project, be pulled for further discussion. So I will make a motion that we accept items number 1 and 2, the monthly activity report and design study 23283.
I'll second.
Okay, can we roll call, please?
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Karpetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Chair LePage.
Yes, the motion is carried. So did you have a question, Commissioner Allen, or a comment regarding the MedCap project?
I did. This is one of the concerns that I have on this project. And a lot of projects that we've been seeing recently is that I feel that the door size, especially an entry door, greatly impacts our guideline around the fact that we want to stay human scale. And so this is an 8-foot door again. We're seeing quite a few of these come through. And so I wanted to bring this to the commission's attention because I believe that the 8-foot doors are outside of what we would want in terms of following the guidelines.
Okay, you feel like this doesn't represent human scale? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have an elevation of that, Marnie, that we can pull up?
Yeah, so Marnie's going to work on pulling that up right now.
Thank you.
So the front entry on the Metcalf project is actually on the north elevation, so it doesn't face the street. And if you can see my cursor, it would be this door right here.
But that's not the door that Commissioner
So,
Allen is concerned about.
If you look at the door schedule, I believe that it's listed as a glass door, isn't it glass?
So there is a pair of doors on the south side leading to an outdoor deck. I believe this is not the main entry, though. I believe this is like a secondary outdoor use access point.
Is that an 8-foot door, height door?
We can double check the schedule.
Oh, I didn't look at the number of that one. Sorry
And
for all the
I'm
scrolling.
sorry, are these the same plans that were shown in the packet?
Yes. I
Yeah, don't
apologize
think-
for the scrolling, but I'm
Is
almost
this-
there.
Is this the project that you were concerned about, Commissioner Allen?
It is, so that's why I'm
I'm just, I want to make sure we got the right project.
So it's door 101 and 102. And they are
Yeah, it's
both 8
It's a
feet.
side door.
And 102 is the entry door, the Dutch door.
Yeah, but they don't present themselves to the street. Yeah, I don't, Did you have any other comments on that, Commissioner Allen?
I don't. I do feel like we have seen a lot of 8-foot front doors coming through. So it seems like it's developed into a pattern. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were keeping that in mind.
Okay, thank you. Is there any members of the public like to comment on this application? Come forward, Adam.
Good evening, Chair LePage, members of the commission. I'm Adam Jesselnick, architect for the Metcalf residence. Thank you, Commissioner Allen, for joining us remotely. Thanks, Marnie, for all your hard work on this project. I have not heard any of the recent discussion around approvals for human-sized entries, but I think it is something that is important for all the houses that come before you, because I think that the entry component of a house really does set the tone for the scale from the street and the relationship to the neighborhood context. I actually kind of think that in this house, with the door facing to the side, it won't actually be visible from the street, in my view, either one of those 8-foot doors. And they also align to the normal head height of the windows. It's a slightly higher plate at that portion of the building. Again, I think this is something we discussed last time, simply because it's a one-story element without the two-story above, and it's the primary living space for the house, the kitchen and the living room. So in my view, it's all very human scale. The half-light window on the main front door, I think, adds to that sort of context. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have about the project. Thank you.
Any questions for the architect? Thanks, Adam. Any other members of the public like to come forward and address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Okay, I don't see anybody coming forward. Any hands up online there? I can't see the Zoom meeting right now.
Leah, do you see anything? No. Okay.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public comments, open up the commissioners. Commissioner Karpetkov, you have any comments about this?
No, I remember discussions about tall doors, and I think when you have a lot of glass, you have a lot of windows, a lot of doors, everything 8 feet, it creates this long pieces of glass that are really not very attractive. But in that particular case, I don't see the problem with that particular door because it's not visible from the street, and it's, it's not visible.
Okay. Commissioner Locke.
I don't have a problem with it because of the location, but I think that Commissioner Allen's comments, we probably should pay attention to that going forward if they're front, if they are in front, if they're 8 foot. That does seem to me like a rather large door. But in this case, they're not visible from the street, so I'm okay.
Okay. Marnie, the particular guideline doesn't address entryways. Grand entryways are discouraged. Is that the context in which doorways are usually addressed? I don't remember a specific guideline regarding doors. I remember about entryways.
Correct, you are correct.
Okay.
There's no specific dimension identified, but the guidelines do speak to a human-scaled front entry.
Right, and a front door could definitely be out of human scale, and particularly in the context of a large entryway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in this instance, because the doors are not on the street elevation, also they're just underneath the line of the gable. There's no attention brought to it. It doesn't rise to the level of a grand entry. So I'm okay with the way it is presently presented. So do we have a motion to?
Sure, I move approval of DS 23036 Metcalf for the final design, study, and associated coastal development permit. And I don't think I need to add anything else. The conditions were included.
I'll second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to approve the design as submitted on the consent agenda. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Karpetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
and Chair LePage.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, this brings us to the public hearings tonight. Just kind of lay down the time rules I usually enforce during that. The public members have 3 minutes to speak on any item. I give the applicant 5 minutes. And if they need additional time at the end of the comments to give us further explanation, I usually grant them an additional 3 minutes. If for some reason you feel you need more time than that, just ask me, and usually I'm amenable to that. So, okay, and the first item on the agenda tonight is a design study. It's DS 23092, the Brown Project. This is consideration of revised concept design study for the demolition of more than 50% of the exterior walls of a 1,755 square foot single-family residence on an 8,000 square foot lot, and construction of 1-story and 2-story additions totaling 1,500 square feet, and it's located at the southwest corner of Guadalupe Street and 4th Avenue. Before we get going, though, I'm going to ask the director to just kind of give us the rules on ADUs, so we know so the public understands the discussion of it, and also how the Planning Commission can discuss this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's a pretty short discussion.
Excuse me, Brandon, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that I needed to recuse myself.
That's right.
from
I'm
this.
sorry. Yeah, Commissioner Allen has to recuse herself because she's within the distance for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a short discussion. Basically, we've heard the story before. There is an ADU on this site that was already reviewed and approved by the city under the current ADU regulations. That is separate and apart from the discretionary decisions that you have authority over as the Planning Commission. So today's hearing is not about the ADU, not about what it looks like, where it is, or anything like that. You're making a decision based on the application that's in front of you for the single-family dwelling.
Right, and as I understand that, we can't bring that into our discussion or decision about the.
You can use, the space that's available left on the site for where the house can be placed. But as far as, what the ADU looks like, you can't make any renderings on the ADU itself. But what's left to develop on the site is what's left after the ADU was built. So certainly whatever space is there, where the development has to go on the site, you have complete control over that as the Planning Commission, as you would even if an ADU wasn't there. They obviously can't build the house on top of an existing ADU, so they only have so much space on the lot to use.
So the ADU does define context.
It defines the space that's allowed for development. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I will invite staff's report.
Thank you, Chair LePage, and good afternoon. So before you this afternoon is a revised concept design study, and this is for the Brown residence located at the southwest corner of Guadalupe and 4th Avenue. So just an overview of the lot. It is 8,000 square feet. There is a private access road easement that runs along the west side. It's approximately 800 square feet, which reduces the buildable area to 7,200 square feet. The project is also located within the Block 45 specific plan area, so there are some development standards specific to this block that apply to this project. The current home was constructed in 1950. A historic evaluation was done, and it was determined that the house is not eligible for the historic inventory. And as you know, the stone wall that surrounds the entire block is a historic resource. And on this lot particularly, there is also an iron gate that is also part of the historic fabric of this block. So this is a photo of that historic stone wall as well as the iron gate. And this is actually the one of the frontages of the project site. So the existing residence is a single story. It's 1,755 square feet in size. The applicant is proposing to demolish more than 50% of the existing walls and is proposing 1- and 2-story additions, which would bring the house to 2,766 square feet. They're also proposing a second floor terrace that measures 216 square feet. So on August 9th, the Planning Commission reviewed the original concept design, and the project was continued with direction to make design changes consistent with the draft conditions. So while those conditions weren't adopted, the Commission did use those to provide guidance to both staff and the applicant. Some of those conditions were to identify the location of required tree plantings, mitigate potential privacy impacts at the staircase windows, which are on the south elevation, reduce the size of the second floor terrace, provide elevation datum for measuring plate and ridge heights, reducing certain plate heights to comply with the municipal code, revising the front entry to a more human scale, reducing the size of the chimney, eliminating the vaulted ceiling, selecting an alternative material for gutters and downspouts, replacing the metal cable railing with a natural material, and replacing the concrete curb that is below the fence along the private driveway with an alternative material. So the applicant has addressed a vast majority of these conditions, and starting with the required tree planting, the applicant is proposing a Monterey cypress along 4th Avenue and a California pepper tree along the private road frontage. And then with respect to the windows on the south elevation, so I'm gonna kind of flip back and forth with slides that were presented at the original concept hearing and then revised slides for what's currently proposed. So this is from the first concept review where we talked about a potential privacy impact to the south neighbor's window here. And the applicant has actually recessed the stairwell, so it's 18 inches further from that property line, so provides a little bit of an additional buffer to that south neighbor. The applicant has also chosen to retain the 3 windows in the stairwell. You can see them, they're stacked on top of each other, but has agreed to install frosted glass so that the windows are opaque. And staff does find that that would sufficiently mitigate any potential privacy impact. With regards to the second floor terrace, originally it was 436 square feet in size. It had a 12-foot setback to the fence line, which is also the edge of the private driveway. It also has had a 3-foot side yard setback there to the south neighbor. And at the concept hearing, staff had proposed reducing the size of the terrace with a recommendation for a 10-foot south side yard setback and a 20-foot setback to the private drive edge. These setbacks are not codified, they're not required. It was just simply a recommendation to try to mitigate potential privacy impacts from a large size terrace. And so the applicant has reduced the size of the terrace to 216 square feet, so about a reduction of half the size that it was originally proposed. The setback is now 19 feet 3 inches to that fence line, but they have chosen to maintain the 3-foot side yard setback. As you can see on the elevation, the edge of the terrace kind of aligns with the building wall, which is very close to those sliding doors. And so they're requesting just consideration from the Planning Commission to maintain that 3-foot south side yard setback. The applicant has also provided a line of sight diagram to demonstrate how the second floor terrace will be screened from public view. So here you can see a 9 to 9.5 foot privacy hedge, which is proposed along the fence line, and how that would screen public views from that private driveway. Okay, so with respect to the vaulted ceiling area, so the project does include a second-story addition, which is 624 square feet in size. That does not include the vaulted ceiling area because it's not considered floor area. At the first concept review, staff identified an issue with the plate height at the vaulted ceiling area. Looking at it as a two-story element, it exceeds the 18-foot plate height by 8 inches. So the applicant did reduce that down to 18 feet. So it meets the two-story plate height, and we'll talk a little bit in a moment about whether this is a one-story or two-story element. But the revision that was made was to lower the entire height of the house to achieve conformance with plate heights. And so on the south elevation, we also had a couple plate height issues. And the applicant, again, has made some revisions to bring those into compliance. So on the south elevation, the two-story plate height is 18 feet. And the one-story plate height is now 9 feet 3 inches. And the applicant achieved that by changing the roof form from a shed to a gable. At the first concept review, there was a recommendation that the front entry be modified to a more human scale. You can see here it was measuring 13.5 feet tall, including the front entry door with the transom windows above. This project also does have an 8-foot entry door. So the applicant has lowered the roof over that front entry by 2 feet, so reducing the scale. They did opt to retain the transom windows, but they have been reduced in height. And so we're maybe looking for some feedback on whether that sufficiently achieves human scale. Staff is supportive of the changes that have been made. So at the first concept review, we also talked about the decorative wall and chimney, which is just to the right of that front entry. And there was a draft condition or recommendation that the scale of this wall be reduced and that it comply with the standards for chimneys. So the applicant has modified the wall. So there's still a decorative wall component at the front entry, but the portion of the chimney that extends above the roof line now does conform with the dimensions outlined in the municipal code. So going back to the vaulted ceiling space, so we drafted a condition at the original concept review to eliminate the vaulted ceiling space, and the commission appeared to be supportive of that. This is an important element of the design for the applicant and his client. And so staff has done a lot of evaluation just to try to see what options might be available. And unfortunately, I think we've reached the conclusion that the code simply just doesn't support a vaulted ceiling space, and neither do the design guidelines. So there is a draft condition giving you the option to either ask the applicant to eliminate the vaulted ceiling, or this alternative where we would treat it as a two-story building element, but upon further review of the municipal code and the definition of what is considered a story, the code just doesn't support that interpretation under option B. So staff is recommending that the commission select option A this evening and direct the applicant to eliminate the vaulted ceiling space. And I think I'm going to revisit that a little bit later when we also talk about public comments. So another draft condition was to eliminate the copper gutters and downspouts. The applicant has done that and is now proposing galvanized painted gutters. There was a condition about replacing the steel cable railing with a more natural material, and the applicant is proposing to use the same cedar siding on the house for the second floor terrace railing. And then on the concrete curb along the private drive, the applicant has agreed to just replace the wood boards in kind in lieu of constructing the concrete curb. So a number of public comments were received. The staff report addresses the few comments that we received before the publishing of the staff report, but there were a number of comments that came in afterwards, which we sent you under separate cover, and which I'll also go through in my presentation. So we did receive over 10, and that actually doesn't include the ones that are in the staff report, but quite a few comment letters split almost evenly between folks in support of the project and then folks that had some concerns. One of the concerns that came up through a couple different comment letters was the 3-foot setback between the second floor terrace and the south property line, and not the 10-foot setback that staff had recommended at the concept review. So there still are some concerns that having the terrace that close to the property line will create some privacy and potential noise impacts to neighbors within this Block 45 area. So the project does meet the required setbacks as set forth in the specific plan as well as the municipal code. So 3 feet is the minimum allowed. However, projects must also be found to conform with the design guidelines. So again, the 10-foot setback was a recommendation that staff had proposed for discussion. And this recommendation was in an effort to mitigate any potential privacy impacts by just pulling that deck further into the property and away from the property line. So a project can comply with a development standard, in this case the 3-foot setback, but still be found in conflict with the design guidelines, so presenting a potential privacy impact, and that is within the Planning Commission's authority to mitigate that impact by requesting that the setback be increased. So that option is available to you. Another concern that was brought up in a couple different letters is the vaulted ceiling. There are concerns that just the size of the proposed home would be looming over other structures within this neighborhood, that it's out of scale with the neighborhood, and that it just doesn't align with the design guidelines. So this kind of ties back to what I was mentioning earlier. Staff had recommended 2 options for the commission's consideration. One option was to treat that area as a 2-story building element, apply the 18-foot plate height, but require that the area be included in the total floor area. However, this option is not supported by the code. So staff is no longer recommending this to the commission as an option because we just don't have any specific code language to back up this recommendation. So the second option is more aligned with what the code says, that a vaulted ceiling is a 1-story building element. The way that we measure a story is from the walking surface of the floor to the walking surface of the floor above. And when there's no floor above, then we measure it, to the ceiling. So based on the code definition, it is a single story or a one-story building element, and the code does limit the plate height to 12 feet. So this is the recommendation that we're putting before the Planning Commission for consideration this afternoon. So here is that definition of a story. So again, a space between the upper surface of any floor and the upper surface of the next floor above, or in the case of the topmost floor, the ceiling or roof. So our recommendation is based on this definition. In the absence of a floor dividing this space into first and second stories, we just don't feel that we could apply the two-story plate height. Also, the residential design guidelines, when they talk about minimizing the mass of a building, it gives some options to consider, which is building less to the maximum floor area. This project is under the maximum allowed. But that third bullet really speaks to tall volume spaces, and it talks about high ceilings. So this is not something that the design guidelines encourage. So another concern that was raised is that the project is going against the residential design guidelines, in that the house is just too big. So staff does want to note that the project is almost 4 feet lower than the maximum allowed building height, which is 24 feet. So in that respect, the applicant has, made a concerted effort to keep the overall height of the building low for a two-story structure. However, in addition to complying with development standards, a project must also be found consistent with the design guidelines, and it is within the purview of the Planning Commission to make appropriate findings that a project is consistent. So even though the project is below the maximum building height, the Planning Commission could still exercise its authority under the mass and bulk regulations to determine whether or not it's consistent with the guidelines. The applicant did provide a walk around the Block 45 document, which was forwarded to you. And this includes photographs of the neighborhood context to show the variety of the different sizes of homes within the block. Also in the public comments, it was noted that the Browns have built a home in the area previously. This is actually a picture of that home. It is on Santa Lucia. However, that's an interesting area of the city where our city limit line kind of jogs. So some of the homes are in the city and other homes are not. And I just wanted to just be clear that this particular home is actually within the county. So if you were trying to remember reviewing this particular home, it didn't come before you. So one thing that I did miss, one of the staff comments, or one of the public comments received prior to the publishing of the staff report was a neighbor recommending that second floor terrace be reduced to a depth of 6 feet. So there's a request for the commission to consider that so that it's more of a viewing balcony rather than a gathering space. So I neglected to mention that, and I apologize. So staff is recommending acceptance of the concept design with 2 conditions. One condition is standard, that we perform a volume study before we come back for final details to make sure that the project is within our volume standards. And then this is an amended condition number 2, that the vaulted ceiling area be eliminated from the design. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there questions from staff from the commissioners? None? Commissioner Allen? Oh, Commissioner Allen has recused herself from this project. Okay, so just to to be clear about the vaulted ceiling, so the reason why staff has removed condition B is because the vaulted ceiling area has to be defined as a single story, so therefore it has to meet the 12-foot plate height and the 18-foot ridge height. Currently, I think the ridge height is like 21.6 or something, isn't it? Is that what it
It's
was?
20 feet and some change.
20, okay, it would be over that, yeah.
And the main reason for deleting B actually is because we were trying to find creative solutions, as we often do. But there's no real nexus to say when you have a two-story element to basically say you're going to count the bottom part as floor area, and when there's no floor separating that lower level and upper area, it's just a vaulted ceiling. We don't have any real nexus to say you can count that overhead volume also as floor space. We just don't have anything in our
You're
code.
missing the floor and the FAR.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Part of the
Well
equation
said,
is
sir.
gone.
Yes, well, sir.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure we all got that clear. Okay, no questions for staff? All right, then I'm going to invite the applicant or the applicant's architect to come forward, make the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair LePage, commissioners and the staff. My name is Anatoly Astritsov. I'm the project architect. Marnie, thank you for the great presentation. Many questions were answered. I would just like to clarify one more time that we are, for people who raised concerns, that we are not asking for any variance or any exceptions. So our design is proposed with all setbacks, floor area, height, and coverage completely within the requirements and in compliance with zoning ordinance, city zoning ordinance. As you know, the owners approached some of the neighbors a couple months ago and left the contact information in case there are any questions regarding the design. The only next door neighbor on the south, Peter Kwan, contacted us, and we had a meeting with him at the site on August 17th. So that neighbor, who is probably most affected by the design, and his property is located right next to the Brown's property, and we were talking about 3-foot setback, which might affect this person. We walked him around the property, we showed him orange netting, we explained him all the setbacks, and we in detail described him the design, the project. He liked the project, he actually complimented the design, and he had no concerns about anything, setbacks, privacy, etc. So I believe based on the main concerning person, who is a next door neighbor, you need to consider the size of the terrace and setback for the terrace. We revised the plans to address the issue raised during the last hearing. As Marnie said, we dropped the roof height by almost 8 inches. And just for your information, the ceiling height on the wall facing the neighbors on the alley side is 7 feet, less than 7 feet and 5 inches. And you know that the standard is 8 feet. So we reduced the mass and height of the building as much as we could. We reduced the yoga terrace by 50%. And we believe we brought it down to a reasonable size of 216 square feet, which allows 2 people to practice the yoga without any, whatever the movements, without interference. We made all other changes per staff recommendations. We also eliminated stucco finish and left just 2 very beautiful natural materials. One of them you saw today, it's a cedar siding, and the second one will be a stone to complement the historic stone wall. We, in addition to all those changes we proposed, and you see that green screening, a hedge along the alleyway, which will provide additional privacy to the neighbors and also screen the proposed structure. Regarding the volume and vaulted ceiling, right? It's still a gray area to me. I couldn't find a like straight definition and how to talk about it, and I believe we need to go with staff's interpretation, but at the same time there is a volumetric study, and I believe there is a reason for volumetric study required with each project, which is actually implemented to control bulk and mass. if you will consider to make your decision based on the volumetric study, that would be great. So if you pass the volumetric study and be below maximum allowed, it will tell everybody that we are in conformance with guidelines regarding the bulk and mass. If we don't pass, we have no choice. We will eliminate the vaulted ceiling. But in any case, if your decision is to approve this project with those two conditions, we will accept those conditions. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions for the architect? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite members of the public to come forward and speak to the commission regarding this application.
Good afternoon, staff. I'm Chris Mack. I usually don't speak on design stuff, but I do live in the neighborhood, and it struck me as a designer, the first thing that was there was the ADU. I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but I did send a letter to you folks, and I stated if the project was reviewed as an complete project, unfortunately, they didn't do that. I think you would have taken the mass of the ADU in consideration with the whole project, even though you couldn't talk about the ADU per se. But I think that's where the problem for the applicant really started. Now, talking about the house itself, I still find the front door out of human scale. I think the architect did a house at the bottom of Santa Rita called the May House. And I find, my personal opinion is the front door is out of scale. It's not human scale. It's raised way up high, kind of similar to this. So that's my opinion. The deck, when I look at this project and this upper level deck, I'm kind of wondering why do they want it? A yoga deck, I don't know, it's a big lot. It does impact the neighbors for privacy and all of this. And when I look at, the rendering up here on the screen, the house, to me, still seems very like there's a lot of mass in the house, plus the ADU, we can't speak about it. But the rendering's very nice. They put a lot of vegetation in front of it, which hides it. And my comment to you guys in my letter was maybe hide the ADU with vegetation, because that softens the building. I still find that I was looking at the house and I'm going, is it a contemporary house, or is it a more traditional house with the roof lines? It's kind of a mishmash of elements. The rock wall on the front of this drawing here is kind of a funny element. I don't know, it's like just plastered there. It doesn't seem to say much to me other than, like you said, the applicant said something about give homage to the rock wall in front, but the rest of the house doesn't seem to do that. When I was gone all summer, and when I came back, the ADU was in place, and the first thing I thought was how massive it is and how small the rock wall is. And the rock wall is a pretty strong element in the neighborhood. So unfortunately, I think the applicant really missed the mark on scale in the neighborhood, and I tried to scale this house back down in mass. I mean, look at the elevation there, and I still say those south windows in the staircase, they're frosted, but it kind of doesn't really, it's just it's a big wall. Anyways, those are my comments. I think the applicant just didn't pay attention.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next speaker, please.
Thank you, staff. Karen Gelf. I'm also longtime neighbor in this neighborhood, and as much as we have a variety of different ages, from the 1950s, 1930s. My house was originally 1945, then added on with this historic wall. It's cottagey. I appreciate that the applicant is trying to, do what they can, but it's just, out of scale, not only for the neighbors, but across the street is a community called the Carl Cherry Foundation, where a lot of people not only walk the neighborhood, but it's a sculpture garden. And I feel that this is overbearing even for not only privacy for the neighbors, but for what this area represents for the community and the Carl Cherry Foundation, that this is a place where people come to. So I feel that this project, as much as they're trying to scale it back, it just is overbearing, and I would like the staff to really really look at all these elements with how it fits in the neighborhood, not just by itself. It's a pretty house, but it just doesn't fit the way it is. Maybe it's just too big. It was always a one-story building. Maybe it's just better making it a one-story building that's there, and especially for it being across the street of the entrance of a community center. So thank you for also for the applicant trying to compromise however they could, but I think in this case, I hate to say it, the one-story, I think most people would be in favor of a one-story residence in this situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to come forward? Please do.
Hi, I'm Natalie Nickel, and I live about 2 blocks up. I've walked through the area for years, and one thing I noticed, 'cause I didn't really understand what the wall was about during that time, but what I did notice, which I did feel was out of scale, was that the gate that is going to be the current gate was way, the house behind that gate was way out of scale for that gate. It was originally, I think that was a one-story, built, I believe, in the 50s. It didn't seem to belong in back of that gate. And one of the reasons I felt like it was that you had this very imposing gate with these big imposing pillars on each side, but this tiny little house didn't make sense. And to me, when people talk about scale, you have to incorporate the wall and those gates, because those gates are very important to the project. They're historic. They didn't belong with the little tiny one-story house before. And now you're finally going to have it look appropriate in scale. It's very hard for people in this neighborhood to see change. And I know that when it was first built, again, maybe the ADU looked large, but today with the organic materials facing the ADU, it looks beautiful with the wall. It actually looks designed with the wall, whereas before it didn't. So I think people need to be a little more patient. People have trouble with vision and seeing what something's going to look like after it's built. But now I think the proportion will be much better with the gate and the wall. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have one person online. I'm going to see first if there's anybody else in the. Please come forward, and then I'll take the online comments.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Adrienne Huckle, and I also live on the private drive at the other end of it. And there are 2 gates right by my house. They're not as large as the ones that were just spoken about, because that was the original entrance for the whole entire block that is surrounded by the wall, which was going to be one person's entire garden. And he since decided to move out to Carmel Valley, and for some reason, I don't know if it's before or after, that smaller house was built. No, that small house does not fit with those huge the walls. But the majority of the wall is like maybe, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 feet tall around the whole entire block. So I feel we don't need a massive building just to make those 2 pillars look like they're in, you know, in the same scale as this massive house. And I welcome new neighbors. I love the change. That house was quite ugly. It did need to be redone or something, rebuilt. But this house has nothing to do, the size has nothing to do with the wall. It's just massive, and the wall is not. So thank you very much, all.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the chamber that would like to please come forward?
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Pasqua. My wife, Mary Kenny, and I live across the street from the project site. And I just have two brief comments. First, in the previous review, staff presented a proposal that had 12 conditions of approval, and that set the bar for acceptance, and you voted against that proposal. And you effectively raised the bar even higher than what was in the original staff report and asked the owners to come back and meet that bar. But the plan being reviewed tonight doesn't clear that bar. In fact, it doesn't clear the original bar. For example, the vaulted ceiling area that has been discussed quite a bit, which adds considerably to the overall bulk of the building, as well as a southern setback on the deck. Now, the changes that were made are definitely a step in the right direction, but they fall short of what you had requested originally, and I hope you're going to stick with the bar that you had previously set. And my second comment has to do with consistency and precedent. Mary and I have been through the planning process, as have many of our neighbors over the years, and we've all wished that we could get an extra foot of height or an extra percentage of coverage, but we heard the message loud and clear that without good reason, the Planning Commission does not set precedents that weaken the design guidelines. And I guarantee that I grumbled about it at the time, but I support that position, and I hope that will be reflected in your discussion tonight. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone else in the chamber that wants to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Please come forward now. Okay, I'm going to call on Shirley Moon. You have your hand up. You want to unmute yourself, Shirley, and speak to us?
Thank you. There are times when projects appear to check every box and are still a failure in design and in blending with the neighborhood. This is such a project. The question is not if someone can see the deck from the street, but what does the person on the deck see? That's what the privacy issue is, and the setback issue should be concerned about. A walk around block 45 does not show the homes only accessed along the private drive, where small cottages are the norm, and they have no choice but to access by that drive, and are going to have to pass by this looming structure. There is one property down that private drive that is a 2-story, and it is right on the edge of the private drive. Block 45 special planning restrictions were put in place because yet another small cottage on there wanted to do a 2nd story. So the whole idea of that design review was to prevent looming structures in a very unique block. I implore you to use every tool you have to modify or deny what is being presented. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else online that would like to address the Planning Commission? I don't see any hands going up. I am going to ask the architect, did you want to make any final comments? All right. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public comment section and open it up to the commission for their comments. Commissioner Locke, would you like to begin?
Sure. First of all, I do want to say that there have been improvements from the August meeting, and that was nice to see. I have, let's see, I don't even know how to start with this one. I'll start with the door, the front door. I do believe it is, quote, too big in the sense that there's a lot of glass around it, and that makes it appear larger. And again, we're talking 8-foot doors, which are big, and then you've got these extra elements that I think just make it out of scale. I think all of my comments really have to do with the design guidelines, and I know that the applicants that, checked all the boxes, but the design guidelines are pretty clear on a lot of things. I do believe that the terrace is too close to the property line, and especially now that the terrace has the solid wood around it from the south property. It's just kind of it's a big wall going up 3 feet from the property line. So I think that does loom over it. The design guidelines 5.1 locate windows and balconies such that they avoid overlooking active indoor and outdoor use areas on adjacent properties, and preserve reasonable privacy for adjacent properties. I just think this is right over the top of that neighbor. So I would like to see that moved or reduced in scale and moved to the north a bit. The ceiling, vaulted ceiling, I support staff's recommendation on that. I don't think we have any other option on that, but I also do want to point out that the Planning Commission directed removal at its August meeting. The stair windows that are proposed to be opaque and face the south also seem kind of out of scale. They're large, they're really large. And yeah, I'd like to see those reduced in size. And my only other comment really is that the different roof designs from the street and from, I think, the flat roof area, I would like to see a pitch on it. But that's my opinion on that one. Other than that, I think, like I said, I appreciate the reduction in size on the chimney element and the stonework. But I think that's really all I have on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. Commissioner Karapetkoff, your comments, please.
Yes. Our design guide is clear on building in human scale, right? We're clear on that. And I think sometimes we forget to think about the wisdom behind this. And there's a lot of thinking going into that requirement. It's very difficult to make tall buildings with high ceilings energy efficient. There's light pollution because all of this light comes out and the whole neighborhood sees the lights. So there are a lot of side effects of building out of scale. I understand that one of the reasons why the applicant was asking for these large windows is to get more light into the kitchen area and the family room, which is wonderful, but I think that you don't need 100 square foot, I think it's approximately 100 square foot of glass in the second floor to get light into a room. You can do it with a 2x4 skylight, or maybe two of them. So, so I think there's definitely too much glass in that particular building. I'm familiar with the other house that they built on Santa Lucia. I've been passing that site. I know the old house that was there, and I saw the new one that they built. They're different. These two houses are completely different. The house on Santa Lucia is single story. This one is 2-story. The house on Santa Lucia is in a very dark area where you have a lot of trees and construction on all sides. So it's not comparable. This side that we saw today is very sunny, it's very open. You don't need so much glass to bring light in. So I think comparing the, I'm not sure exactly what the reference was to the other house that they built on Santa Lucia, but I think they're completely different houses. So trying to get the same amount of glass as Santa Lucia is not a good idea for that particular site, which is sunny, which is open, and it's in a different context. I mean, when we talk about context of the neighborhood, we frequently think about other buildings and houses. And the context of that neighborhood is the history of that wall that was built in the 40s, the history of that gate that I understand was built in Spain and shipped to California also in the beginning of the previous century. I wanted to see more in a house that connects to that history, because it's a very unique opportunity. This is a very unique lot. It's a huge opportunity to bring value to Carmel. And any connection that we can build or see between the house and the gate, the house and the wall, is something that will enhance it. Also, it's useful to look back into the history and understand how important that wall is for the town. I live in the opposite part of town. I'm familiar with the whole history around the Carmel mission and know how important that is for our part of town. So that wall is equally important for Block 45. It was built by a head mason, Green is his name, I think, Charles Green, who also built the War Memorial Arch on Ocean. He also built a bunch of houses in Carmel, including the D.L. James House, which is also known as Brad Pitt's house lately. So we have a lot of history that is already there. You can touch it. You can touch that wall. You can touch that gate. And I would like to see making more out of this opportunity from an architectural point of view. The minimum we can do is to reduce the size, follow the guidelines, and make sure that the house is not extremely modern so that it goes against the history that is in this place. But I wish we can do more, that we can make it much more aligned with the feel that you get in that particular area. And that's really my comment to that project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is our second time reviewing this. We laid out 12 requests of the applicant, and from what I see, they made 10. What they came back with is they still want the vaulted ceiling. The vaulted ceiling's out. And it's not a guidelines thing. It's the municipal code. It doesn't meet the municipal code. And that's why staff is making the recommendation there. So the vaulted ceiling is out. Now, from the other comments I've heard about mass, if you take the vaulted ceiling away, you're going to reduce a lot of mass. So I think that addresses the neighbors' concerns. There's going to be a lot more, particularly for the neighbor to the west. That's going to open up a lot of view, because I stood there today where he has his window. I think his office is right there, and he's kind of looking up at that addition. It's going to open up that to the north for him. And I think generally it's going to reduce the mass and the scale of this second story. Second stories are always problematic. So that takes care of that one. So now we're down to the deck. My recommendation on the deck, and I want everybody to understand, they can have a 3-foot setback. That meets the standard. Staff made a recommendation of 10 feet to mitigate impacts to the neighbor to the south. I went and looked in the neighbor's south, their yard. They've got a carport there, a garage, a flat, so it really doesn't look into their front yard. There's a garage there. So what I would suggest, though, is pull it back another 3 feet from the property lines. You're going to get a little offset there. The roof line will kind of go up onto the railing, kind of mitigate the vertical height of that, create a little more interest. You still have a nice sized deck that I think will enable you to do what you want to do. So that's my recommendation. And I think that takes care of the 12 issues. And I support all of staff's findings. Staff did a great job, a lot of analysis on this. Like I said, this has already been through here. We're not starting from ground zero. I want to find a path forward for the neighborhood, for the applicant. And I think if we eliminate the vaulted ceiling, pull the deck back from the southern property line another 3 feet, that gets us to where we were with the 12 requests from the Planning Commission at our last meeting. Any more discussion on that? You want to talk about that? Okay. Oh, the other thing, the entryway, you know, I feel like the applicant lowered it. They brought it down. They made a significant design change here. I'm fine with it. They eliminated the mass of that chimney. You know, they took a lot of mass out of there. And the human scale is about the entry and the context. It isn't just about the door. It's all brought down. The transom windows over it, they kind of repeat the lines of the roof. I don't have a problem with it, but maybe my other commissioners do. So I'm open to a motion. If one of the commissioners want to try to do that. You're gonna jump in on that, Commissioner? I see you're kind of moving over there.
All right. I move approval of the revised concept design study DS 23092 for Brown, with the special conditions, with all the conditions and special conditions.
These are draft conditions.
Proposed by staff, including the removal of the vaulted ceiling, and that the terrace be moved 6 feet from the south property line. And I think that's it.
Okay. I'll second that motion. Do we have any more discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Karpetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Chair LePage.
Yes. Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next item on the public hearings tonight is another design study. Commissioner Allen's back with us. This is DS 23137. This is the Lehman project. This is consideration of a combined concept and final design study and associated coastal development permit to demolish 26 square feet of a 1,597 square foot single-story residence and construct a 219 square foot single-story addition and associated site improvements, and it's located on San Carlos, 5 southwest of 13th Avenue. Can we have staff report, please?
Sorry, we're just working on our tech here. There we go. I think we got it now.
All right. So the next item on your agenda is the Lehman project. This is a combined concept and final design study. So this is a 4,000 square foot lot. It's located on San Carlos, 5 southwest of 13th Avenue. The home was constructed in 1966. And the applicant is proposing to demolish a portion of the existing garage and convert the remaining space into living space, and then construct a new attached garage in front of the existing garage. And no trees are proposed for removal as part of this project. There are 15 trees on or adjacent to the project site. 9 of them were rated significant. And again, no trees are proposed for removal and no additional trees are required to be planted. Staff did not identify any privacy or view impacts. All existing and proposed construction is single story. And there is a 6 to 7 foot fence that separates the project site from the property to the north, where the new garage would be constructed. There are no significant changes in grade between the two properties, and the window modifications are minor. Regarding parking and access, the garage does meet the minimum required dimensions of 10 feet by 20 feet. It's actually a little bit larger at 227 square feet in size. It is attached to the residence, and it maintains a 15-foot setback to the front property line. Also, the construction of the garage will result in a reduction of the driveway hardscape. Again, the project really consists of the conversion of the existing garage to living space, and constructing a new attached garage in front of the old garage. There are very minimal plate and ridge height increases, and staff finds that the project is consistent with the guidelines for mass and bulk. So, with regards to building and roof form, again, the form of the proposed garage is a typical rectangular form. The existing hipped roof is proposed to be replaced with a new, the project also includes the demolition of the entire roof structure throughout the home. The existing roof is a series of hipped roofs, and the proposed new roof would also be a predominantly hip roof in a much simpler form. At the proposed garage would be a front-facing gable with a pitch of 6 and 12, and then the home would have 18-inch roof eaves throughout. With regards to finished details, the applicant is proposing a cedar shingle siding with semi-transparent stain, as well as a limestone veneer for the chimney, the porch columns, and the front yard fence columns. The applicant's also proposing a synthetic slate tile roof, which you had an opportunity to look at a sample today while we were on the tour of inspection. There's also a metal accent roof at the dormer on the front elevation, aluminum-clad wood windows with simulated divided lights, and a concrete paver driveway. With respect to the right-of-way character, the right-of-way is in a natural state. There were no encroachments identified. There is a pine tree that was removed by the city, and no new landscaping is proposed, so the right-of-way would remain in its current natural state. With regards to the exterior lighting, the proposed wall sconce has a bronze finish with an etched seedy amber glass. The applicant is proposing 4 fixtures on the front elevation, so 2 at the garage and 2 at the front entry, and then 3 fixtures at the south side yard patio. Historically, staff has not considered this style of fixture to be shielded or directing light downwards, because you can see the light behind the etched seedy glass. So staff has proposed special condition number 37, that an alternative light fixture be selected. There is a potential alternative. This is a very attractive fixture, and there are light bulbs that themselves are shielded and direct light downwards, and there's a picture of one there on the screen. So that could be an alternative if the applicant wanted to keep this style of fixture and shield the light bulb instead. With regards to fencing, gates, and arbors, the applicant is proposing a new 4-foot high grape stake fence in the front yard. The fence would also have 16-inch square stone veneer columns spaced about 8 to 9 feet apart. Landscaping is also proposed along the fence line in between the stone columns. Staff has crafted special condition number 38 to address the spacing of pickets. This is an item that can be kind of vague when homes are under construction, how much spacing is appropriate. So staff is just recommending that the spacing be equal to the width of the pickets, and that would allow filtered views to the front garden, and it would give the contractor a little bit more concrete direction on what we mean by spacing. And then also special condition 39, staff is recommending that the stone columns be removed from the front yard fence design. Based on our review of the design guidelines, you know, they encourage first to design without a fence and to use vegetation. And then the third option is when you do want to use a fence, there are certain, you know, criteria like, you know, keeping them simple, handcrafted design, allowing those filtered views of the front garden. And so based on the design guidelines and what staff has heard from the Planning Commission on some other projects, the stone columns really add kind of a formality and just sort of create more of a separation between the public and the private realm. So staff is recommending that those be eliminated. With regards to site coverage, the existing property is over on site coverage, and some additional work needs to be done to reduce the site coverage to bring it in compliance. And so that's covered in special condition number 40. The applicant did provide a preliminary landscape plan with a plant palette. We did have an opportunity to have the city forester take a look at it, and he did find the plant palette to be appropriate. So standard condition number 22 is just that a final landscape and irrigation plan be submitted before issuance of the building permit. And with that, staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving this combined concept and final design study along with the coastal development permit. And we do have conditions. I have listed them here and I can go through them really quickly. Pre-construction meeting, this is sort of becoming more of a standard condition so that the planner has an opportunity to meet with the contractor and review the conditions of approval with them before they start construction. Also our standard condition on the copper gutters and downspouts. Our newest condition about construction management plans. The change in the exterior light fixture. So I will end it there, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, are there questions for staff from the commissioners? Yeah. Commissioner Allen, any questions?
No, not at this time.
None there?
I think the only question.
You have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this material that we saw on site for the roof, is that something that has been installed? Do we have any information of how, you know, durable it is, how it behaves over time?
So I am not aware of a project in Carmel where this particular material has been installed. You could certainly ask the applicant to provide some more information on, you know, the quality and the material itself.
Do we have that sample here in the chamber?
No, but I can get it.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if we brought it out. Thank you. Did you have any other questions, Commissioner Carapaccio? Okay, great. Okay, while he's getting, I think we can invite the architect to come forward and make their presentation.
Good evening again, Chair LePage, members of the commission. I'm Adam Jesselnick, architect for Ms. Lehman. Glad that you have an opportunity to visit the site this afternoon. When Jill approached me for the design of this project, I thought it was a great opportunity to take a reasonably good-looking house that's been contributing to the neighborhood for a while and give it a good facelift and also make it more of a functional home for a full-time resident. and a space to obviously, continue to have a garage on site. So working closely with Marnie, I think we came up with a proposal that meets all aspects of the zoning code. So I'll just speak to a couple of the conditions and comments that Marnie made in terms of the design guidelines. The first one would pertain to the site coverage. So we are reducing the site coverage by nearly 600 square feet, removing all of the excess concrete walkways, reducing the size of the driveway significantly, and eliminating a small gravel patio in the front yard. I think there was a discrepancy in the site plan and the landscape plan. I just wanted to clarify that we are scaling back all the site coverage as is shown on the site plan, and we'll work closely with staff to meet the 396 maximum required square footage there. For the lighting, this is an item that we discussed at length. I know there's been a lot of discussion about lighting at the commission. I think that there's an opportunity to expand the range of options that would be available to architects and designers if we look at some creative ways to hopefully shield, not just the actual fixture, but the light bulb itself. In my opinion, this is a shielded fixture. It is downward facing, and with the opaque and colored and textured glass, I think that it does a fairly good job of not drawing a lot of attention to the light source, and it's a design that's very compatible with the architecture of the home. So I'd like to ask for your consideration on that item. In terms of the roof, this was something that we just spent a lot of time discussing internally with the design team. I think that the owner's desire is to have a roof that's going to be very durable, not require maintenance, not require any replacement. I think this is a 50-year warranty roof, and that is also, of course, fire resistant. So we are proposing metal for the dormer aspect. We talked about metal for the entire house as a possible material, but the owner really likes the look of the slate. It's just that the actual slate, between the cost and the additional weight and the engineering required to make that work, we thought this would be a suitable alternative for consideration, and eager to have the commission's feedback on that. But we do have other options that we could consider. And then lastly, and then I'll wrap up, in terms of the front yard fence, this is a 50 by 80 lot. It's sort of, the backyard is very constrained, the side yards are pretty constrained, so the front yard provides one of the few opportunities for outdoor living space. The owner has a couple of dogs, and so a fence is really important to her. I did a little research looking around the neighborhood. San Carlos, as you know, is a really significant north-south street. So between this project and the downtown, on San Carlos, probably one in every 3, 1 in every 4 houses has some type of masonry or stucco component along the street edge. And so I think that what we're proposing is not out of character with that. I think that the guidelines do speak to masonry front walls if they're kept to the 4-foot height. And to have 4 posts along the street elevation, I don't think is inconsistent with the design guidelines. My last comment about that is just in terms of the fence. There's a variety of different grape stake fences around town, examples over time. I'd like the ability to work with staff on that condition. I think that the spacing of an open picket versus the width of the picket for this style of house and this fence is a little bit awkward. Happy to keep a little bit of spacing between the pickets, but I think we could probably work to tailor that to make it look right versus just setting a dimension at this time. So with that, those are my only comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for Adam? Have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So I think years ago there was material like that used in construction, and there were a lot of problems with installing it, with servicing it, etc. Do you think the technology has improved now? This is different technology that is better than what was available in the, I guess, in the 80s or in the 90s?
For sure, yeah. It's a much improved technology. There's 3 or 4 of the major roof manufacturers that are making a material like this. It's actually a very expensive product. It's, there's not a tremendous cost difference between this and metal, which is why if we were weighing the two side by side, the owner really prefers the look of this. I find it to be, especially at a distance and with the amount of roof that's visible from the street, I think it will blend in really nicely from a color standpoint, from a finish standpoint, and I don't think it will look out of place at all. So.
And how do you install it? Do you install it on plywood with some kind of rain cover, rain protection?
Oh yeah, of course it's fully waterproof underneath, and then there's clips to install this material on
so
top of
here,
it.
the clips come here?
Mhm.
Is this virgin material? Is it virgin material or is it recycled?
That's a good question. I can find out.
And also, is there a reflectivity rating for this?
That's also on the specifications. I can look it up and provide a comparison to other
Great.
materials.
Okay, any other questions for Adam? Thank you.
I don't
Yep.
usually ask questions during this session, but
Go
I heard
ahead.
you guys ask a question and I didn't hear it come back up. Mr. Justin, have you, on any of your other projects, installed this product? Or do you know if there's anywhere around the area, either in town or close to town, where this product has been installed?
I reached out to the manufacturer to ask them if they had anything locally. They were not aware of it. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have an example handy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else in the chamber that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Don't see anybody jumping up. What about online? Do we have anybody online that wants to address the Planning Commission? I can't see the Zoom. Nobody? Okay, I'm going to close the public comments and open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Karapetkoff, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I think the project is very straightforward. I like the approach they're taking. Simplifying the roof makes sense. I mean, there will be some changes, but I look at the drawings. The old roof is really a patchwork of different roofs. It's very difficult to navigate, so that makes sense. The house needs an update. It's a good thing that they are remodeling it. The new roofing material, I think we can take a chance on this new roofing material and see how it works. The house is not exposed. It's kind of hidden in the back, so it's not very visible from the street. I think it's a good opportunity to see how this roofing material works, because we have to try it to see how it looks in real life. I mean, it's difficult to imagine how a finished house is going to look. There are also these elements on the ridges and how it connects to the gutters, and all of these components you can only see when it's installed. So I'm for taking the risk and trying this new material.
Okay, Commissioner Locke, why don't you share the information in your comments you just found?
So just on the roof tile, it does appear to be a viable and long-lasting option. That the brand that was referenced is made with 100% recycled post-industrial plastic material. It is Class 4 impact, Class A fire, and up to 150 mile per hour wind. So I think that as far as a synthetic or composite material for roofing, that we should go ahead and give that a try. And other comments on this property that I have would be, I do want to see the columns taken out on the front fence if possible. And but other than that, I think it's actually a very, very nice project, Adam, and it will look really nice in that neighborhood. Right now, there's no fencing on the front of the property, and so you're adding another fence to the street. And I think as much as we can minimize that look, that would be my preference. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my only concern about the roof is the reflectivity. It looks a little reflective, and it'd be nice if we could get some get something on that. They probably, may not be something they even provide. But that's my only concern about it. It just looks a little reflective, which, you know, from my experience with slate, it never seems like it's reflective. So that would, could make it look inauthentic. So that's my only concern. Personally, I think the fence meets the guidelines because it's open. And staff has also specified that the spacing, and I think there are elements of masonry. This is consistent with the character of neighborhoods, and I don't really think that the 4 columns are gonna enclose this any more than a fence already does. So I understand it's discretionary. I also appreciate all the hard work that staff goes to try to make these findings and support these findings. And that's what this process is about for staff and for all of us, is making decisions that are based upon our land use documents, and those are the findings that support these projects. So I appreciate all the hard work. But I do feel that the fence does present an open design. It's grape stakes, which is a material which is consistent with what you see in a lot of our neighborhoods. I would suggest that rather than doing a level top, you do a varying height that's more consistent with a lot of the designs you see. It also creates more of a casual look, which is consistent with Carmel's neighborhoods. We have very undeveloped streetscapes. We don't have curb and gutter. We have a lot of variation in the setback, and that's what really is really defining character of this community that you don't see in other communities, where you just see this curb and gutter and very linear and regular types of landscaping. So any opportunity for irregularity, I think, is always good in Carmel's neighborhoods. Keeps the design going. It's interesting on that light fixture too. I wonder sometimes if we're kind of getting a little crazy on this, this downcast thing. I mean, I'm just talking out loud here, but I mean, personally, I think the intent, first of all, the intent is not to create a lot of light pollution. And a bare bulb, glaring out into the street really creates a lot of light pollution. And, but I think a very, a well-shielded fixture with a translucent lens can create a nice ambiance to the neighborhoods. And I think these light fixtures, as I see them presented, that's what they would do. So I don't have a problem with the light fixtures, but I'm just one voice up here. So those are my comments. If one of the other commissioners would like to make, pardon? Commissioner Allen. Oh, excuse me. Forgot all about her. Commissioner Allen, forgive me for not calling you.
No.
It'd be nice if you had your face on the screen. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overlook you. Commissioner Allen, please, your comments.
No worries. Very similar to what other people have said, very thoughtful design. I do agree with the staff's recommendations. Would prefer to not see a fence, but if you need to have a fence, then I think the grape stake is a good option. In terms of light fixtures, while it's nice that we have different bulb options and different things that we can do, I have walked around town and there are some houses that have just lights everywhere. So I think it would be nice if we could have options that shot the light down without having to rely on a bulb, but I'm fine with what's been proposed tonight.
Okay, thank you, and I do apologize for forgetting you. But it's staff's fault because they didn't put your picture up there, so I knew you were here.
We will always take the hit for you,
That's
Mr.
great.
Chair. That's why we're here.
And I always look for a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Okay, I've made my comments. Everybody else, do we have a motion? We have, staff went over their special conditions. This is concept and final, if I'm
So
correct?
we would
So-
ask whoever makes the motion to include what their motion would include with respect to
Right.
the things we talked about, like the fence and the lighting. And so whoever makes that motion, we
Yeah.
would ask for that.
Yeah, so we can go with the special conditions as per staff, or those special conditions being modified, or special conditions can be added. Not going to do it? Commissioner Allen, did you want to do it?
If I were going to make a motion, I would make a motion that we go with staff's recommendations.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as per staff's special conditions.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on this? All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Chair LePage.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, I think that brings us to our last item on the public hearing tonight. This is let everybody get settled here. This is another design study. This is DS 23148. This is DGB Investments Incorporated. It's consideration of a design study for a 739 square foot net addition to an existing one-story residence, including the addition of a new 868 square foot second story. And it's located on Mission Street, 3 northwest of San Lucia. Can we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the subject site is a 7,500 square foot lot currently developed with a total of 2,071 square foot of improvements. The applicant is proposing a 2,610 square foot residence that includes a 100 square foot kitchen addition, a 412 square foot first floor addition at the rear of the residence, as well as a 430